Chapter 10. Duran sent his people on to the next destination, but did not immediately go himself. Nobody questioned him, of course. His methods might be unorthodox and occasionally paradoxical, but he got results. Not even Varden, the most treacherous lieutenant Duran had ever been forced to work with, had been able to undermine his authority, despite several subtle and creative attempts. Duran drove himself out of the city of Cleveland and to a remote warehouse being used for storage. The place was locked up and deserted, but the key Duran had been provided got him inside, and once inside, he found that the dirty windows allowed in enough light to see by. He walked through shoulder-high stacks of boxes with no interest in their contents, working his way gradually toward the center of the building. When he reached his goal, he saw that a skylight directly above his position threw light down around him in a neat circle. He wondered whether she had chosen this spot for that reason. "You're late," she told him, stepping out of the shadows. "No," he said coolly, "you're early." She shrugged. "I was brought up right. How about you, Duran? Military training?" He ignored the question. "Do you have it?" If anything, she seemed amused by his refusal to reply to her seemingly innocent question. "I wouldn't be here if I didn't." She took a step toward him and pulled a large manila envelope from inside her jacket, handing it across the space between them. He took it but didn't open it. Instead, looking at her, he said, "Any trouble getting this?" "Other than risking everything, you mean?" Her smile was sardonic. No trouble." "How long do I have?" She shrugged again, patently unconcerned. "I would say that depends on the current situation. If everything hits the fan right on schedule, you'll have a week at the outside from today. After that, you might as well burn it for all the good it'll do you." "I need more time." His tone was measured, his expression carefully neutral. "Sorry, it wasn't my fault you've set things up this way." "I had no choice," he reminded her. "Maybe. Or maybe you just got too ambitious. In any case, it's your problem, not mine." Pleasantly, he said, "You really don't like me very much, do you?" "No," she replied, equally pleasant, "I really don't." She didn't say goodbye. She just backed away until the shadow swallowed her. Duran tapped the edge of the envelope against his hand for a moment, then sighed and slid it into his coat pocket, still without opening it. Then he turned and left the warehouse, not forgetting to lock the door behind him, and went to join his people. "Hurry, Sarah. No matter how far you run, we'll find you. We'll always find you. Destiny meant to be." "If it was them," Tucker said as the jeep sped along the interstate highway toward Syracuse, "what the hell are they up to?" "Maybe they wanted to remind us, me, that it's no use running," Sarah offered quietly, shutting out the whispers in her head. Tucker, who had taken a roundabout route from the hotel to the interstate and convinced himself they weren't being followed, said, "The hotel must have sent the flowers." They said not. "Yeah, but they couldn't find any paperwork on the delivery. I bet somebody just screwed up and put the flowers in our room despite the do not disturb sign. I've never heard of a hotel doing that." He sent her a quick look. "They couldn't possibly have found us so quickly, not after we ditched the car in Chicago." "No, logically they couldn't have, unless they were much closer than we thought. saw us drive away in this Jeep and followed us to Cleveland. You believe that's what they did? I believe we'd better assume it's what they did, that someone is following, and closely. Tucker was silent for some miles, then spoke abruptly. What are your feelings telling you? Sarah half turned in the seat to look at him. Not much. Nothing really, but what? She hesitated, then said, for days now I felt a pressure building inside me, in my head, behind my eyes, like a sinus headache. The whole time we were at the hotel, it really bothered me. As soon as we left, the pressure eased a bit. I can barely feel it now. You think you were reacting to their nearness? I don't know. I'm just telling you what I felt. He frowned. You said you didn't sleep well because of the pressure? I guess. Do you remember your dreams? No, but I kept waking up, and whenever I did, I felt restless and uneasy. Not frightened? Being frightened was such a constant state that Sarah had to think about his question. Had to ask herself whether she had awakened with more fear than usual. She thought about it and shook her head. No, not especially frightened, just uneasy, anxious. The way you feel when you feel a faint sound you can't immediately identify. Tense, sort of listening. Then I'd relax and eventually go back to sleep. That happened over and over all night. Tucker was silent for a few more miles, then said, if we suppose they were back there at the hotel watching us, the question becomes, why didn't they make a move? Maybe the answer is what I guessed before. Maybe you're becoming aware of them on some level, even if it's unconsciously, and maybe they know that. How would they know, supposing it's true? Experience, maybe. Look, from what we've been able to find out, these people have been after psychics for years, decades. Along the way, they must have, learned their trade, for want of a better phrase. Learned what worked for them. Suppose they found out through trial and error that they have only a relatively small window of opportunity during which they can move boldly to grab a psychic. Until the psychic starts to react to their presence? Why not? An enemy as large in number as you feel they are must give off a hell of a lot of negative energy. From the research I've done about psychics, that seems to be the thing, energy. Psychics tune into it at various frequencies, react to it when there's a lot around, like during a storm. Slowly, she said, storms have bothered me since I came out of that coma. It's not uncommon, or so I've been told. Say that's it. Say whatever you can do. The basis of any psychic ability is energy. And in the beginning, whenever a psychic becomes psychic or wakes up to it, whatever, the energy has to be almost overpowering. Sarah nodded silently. So, the mind learns to protect itself. It learns to build walls or some other kind of protection against that overwhelming energy. Maybe it learns to filter through all the static and focus on certain frequencies. Makes sense, she said. And it works to varying degrees. But when these dangerous people are close by, this enemy, they must give off a different kind of energy. Dark, negative, a threat, even if it's unconscious. I'm willing to bet that out of sheer self-preservation, any good psychic would catch on pretty quick and be able to start tuning in on them, on that particular frequency. It would naturally make those psychics a lot more wary. It might even cause them to wake up in the night feeling uneasy. But why would that keep the other side at a distance, Sarah wondered. Even if they assume I can feel them near me, so what? They outnumber us, we know that. They burned down my house, and we're reasonably sure they killed a cop, as well as some psychics, so they're clearly not hesitant to use violence. No, but maybe they're afraid of attention. Grabbing somebody in a crowded hotel could be a noisy proposition. It could draw too many innocent bystanders, too many policemen not on the payroll. That could be another reason they seem to make their moves at night. So they're just watching and waiting, looking for an opportunity to get me when it won't be noticed, when I can be caught off guard so I'm not likely to make too much noise. It makes sense, as much as anything in this makes sense. Then why leave those flowers? Why make it obvious? A terrorist tactic is my bet, Tucker said slowly. Nobody can be wary 24 hours a day. If they can keep you rattled, frightened, they stand a better chance of either driving you to make a mistake or just plain exhausting you so you can't see them coming. It was working, Sarah thought, in spades. She looked at him for a moment longer, then turned her gaze forward. The highway was busy on this Tuesday afternoon, and as she watched the cars ahead of them, she couldn't help wondering whether they were as innocent as they seemed. Maybe there were watchers in that van up ahead, or that racy-looking Corvette. Maybe the truck that had passed them a mile back had done so only to avoid suspicion. The watcher inside handing the duty off to someone else along the way. Or maybe not. When an enemy lurked all around, it was easy to become paranoid. Uneasily, she said, "Has it occurred to you that an accident staged on the highway would be a dandy way to get us?" "Yes, it has." Tucker's voice was grim. "If they mean to kill us, that'd be the quickest way to at least try." "If?" "I have my doubts about that, Sarah." She returned her attention to his profile. "Why?" "So far, virtually everything they've done, with the possible exception of burning down your house, and we can't be absolutely positive that was their doing, could have been an attempt to get their hands on you rather than kill you. Even your own feelings are confused on that point. You know they're after you, but the major reason you think they want you dead is because of your vision, right?" "Well, what about that? I saw my death." "You've seen a lot of things that could easily be symbolic. The bells, the open grave, and the headstone. Even the murmur of many voices. All of them are, or could be, symbols of death. The trappings of a funeral and burial." So maybe that's what you were really seeing, Sarah, the trappings, the appearance of death, of your death. "I still don't." "Okay, suppose with me for a minute. Suppose that fire at your house was intended to be a, pardon the pun, smokescreen. Suppose the plan was to get you out before police and firemen arrived, to just take you. Officials arrive, find your house burning, maybe even find a female body in the ruins, and presto, Sarah Gallagher is dead, and nobody's looking for her. Then why didn't it work out that way?" "I don't know. The fire spread too fast, maybe. The neighbors gathered too quickly. The dream, vision you had before the fire made you too wary to be caught. Whatever the reason, they failed. But maybe what they failed at was taking you rather than killing you." "It's a pretty big leap," she said slowly. "Yeah, I know, but it bothers me that they haven't tried to arrange a little car crash for us, especially if they really did send those damn flowers. If they did, they pretty much had to be following us all the way from Chicago. We know damn well they were on us all the way to Chicago. That's a lot of miles, and faking an accident wouldn't have been hard." At these speeds, just bumping another car can be a one-way ticket to the morgue. So why haven't they at least tried? Unless they don't want me dead, she finished. Tucker nodded. Unless they don't want you dead. Sarah thought about it, then shook her head. But what about Margot? That little accident was meant to be deadly. And you said they were probably after me. I haven't quite figured that out yet, he admitted, but that's just one instance where it appears that death was clearly the intent. All the rest of the evidence is going the other way. She tried to get her thoughts organized, something that was getting harder to do. Whether it was her interrupted sleep last night, the hasty flight from the hotel, or just stress and exhaustion over the whole frightening business, Sarah was having a difficult time thinking clearly. Are you saying you think some of the psychics who were supposedly killed really weren't? When some of the newer information came in this morning, I noticed that in at least a third of those cases, either no body was found or else what was found was pretty messed up. A lot of burn victims from house fires, car and plane crashes, things like that. Drownings where the body had been in the water a long time. Identification was sketchy and often depended on the location of the bodies or the fact that nobody asked questions. If a man or woman lives alone and a body is found in their house or car, if that person is missing, if the body is the right sex, roughly the right size and age, wearing the missing person's clothing or jewelry, in a lot of cases, the assumption is made. And even when identification was made through so-called positive means, as in dental records or even DNA, well, records can be switched. I'd say that would probably be child's play for people with police officers in their pockets. You mean innocent people might have been killed just to provide bodies? That belated realization hit her hard. If the stakes are high enough, why not? My God. Tucker looked at her quickly. I'm sorry. She wondered vaguely what he'd heard in her voice. But all she said was, do you think that if we checked the Richmond newspapers for the days after the fire, we might read that the body of a woman was found dumped somewhere? A woman about 35'4", 105 pounds, maybe with dark reddish hair. A woman who might have been mistaken for me in the right circumstances? I don't know. Can we check? He sent her another quick glance. Sarah, it isn't your fault. If some other woman died, blame them, not yourself. I'd like to know, she said steadily. I need to know. Why? What good would it do? Sarah couldn't tell him that. She only knew that it was a question she had to have answered. But all she said was, it would be another piece of information, wouldn't it? Another bit of evidence that we're guessing right. You said yourself we need to know all we can. I don't think that's your reason. It's reason enough. She waited through several moments of silence and prompted, Tucker? All right. When we get to Syracuse, I'll see what I can find out. Just remember that Richmond is a big city. People died there. None of those deaths has to be connected to you. She didn't respond to that, but said instead, if the other side really is taking some of the psychics reported dead, as well as those reported missing, what are they doing with them? What do they want with me? If the object was to kill you, then you might pose a threat to them. If getting their hands on you and other psychics is the object, then obviously of some kind of value to them. They want or need to use you somehow. how to buy lottery tickets, to predict how the stock market's going to go in the months and years ahead? Maybe. But among the supposedly dead and definitely missing psychics I've listed so far are those who can't predict the future any more than I can. Psychics whose gifts are along other lines. People with telepathy, telekinesis, the ability to supposedly channel the dead, or sense spirits, or start fires, or take pictures with the mind. It really runs the gamut. Then I can't see how there could be a single answer to this. Sarah rubbed her forehead fretfully. It doesn't make any sense. He was watching her more closely than she had realized. Is the pressure building again? She thought about it, then shook her head. No, not really. I'm just having a little trouble thinking clearly. And of course I'm scared half out of my mind. Tucker frowned but said, they must think they can gain something. I can think of a dozen scams where a medium or a fire starter would come in handy. She was surprised. Scams? Sure. A good medium can do a pretty brisk business, and arson can be immensely profitable. Yes, but a fake medium could probably do okay. Especially given the apparent resources of the other side. And as for fire starters, all it takes to start a fire is a match. A match can also leave evidence of arson. Even so, to be honest, this doesn't feel like a for-profit thing to me. It's just too damn big, too complicated, and too costly. The payoff has to be big, maybe bigger than we can imagine. I just don't see that coming from sideshow mediums or burning buildings. So we still don't know what's going on. He glanced at her. We know what, or part of what, we just don't know why. And all we can do is talk in circles. Sarah resisted the urge to rub her forehead again. You must think you're going to get a pretty good book out of all this, Tucker, to stick with me this long. We're putting the pieces together, Sarah. You have to admit we know, or think we know, a lot more than we did a week ago. For all the good it does us. You're tired, his voice gentled. It's hard for you to see that we are making progress, but we are. And we'll do even better once we make contact with another psychic. I can't afford to be tired, you said it yourself. But all she said aloud was assuming we picked the right psychic and not one who belongs to the other side. You'll know if we're right. Well, I believe you will. Suppose I don't. Suppose I can't tell an enemy from a friend. What then? As hard as she tried, she couldn't steady her shaking voice. Then we'll think of something else. His voice was calm, but there was an underlying note of tension. And keep running. We can run as long as it takes. Sarah rubbed her cold hands together. They always seem to be cold now. Nerves, she supposed. How long are you prepared to put your life on hold, Tucker? I told you as long as it takes. Only until October. One way or another, we'll stop running then. But all she said was, whether they want me dead or not, we know they can kill if you get in their way. I intend to get in their way, and I'm betting you're stronger than they suspect you are. I'm betting on you. Are you willing to bet your life on me? Without looking at her, Tucker replied flatly, I already have, Sarah. There was really nothing she could say to that. Beyond the window where he stood, Durand could see most of downtown Syracuse. He didn't think much of it. Not that he considered the matter with any undue interest. His attention was directed toward a specific building barely a block away, another hotel. It was almost 9 o'clock on Tuesday night, and the hotel was flooded with light. The footsteps behind him were inaudible, but he heard them. Well, have they checked in? Yes, sir, same as before, junior suite. The door opens into the parlor where Mackenzie will be. Where we assume Mackenzie will be, Duran corrected gently. Yes, sir. Duran turned away from the window. What does Astrid say? That Gallagher is blocking, probably unconsciously. I wonder if she's telling the truth, Duran mused. Not a question so much as thoughtful speculation. Varden did not venture a response, though a faint frown pulled at his brows. Duran saw it. You think she wouldn't lie to us? She was brought over 10 years ago. If we can't trust her. Yes, if we can't trust her, Duran smiled. Something ironic in the expression. Varden waited a moment, then said, Is it Astrid's opinion that Gallagher is on the edge of understanding at least some of what she's capable of? I can see that for myself without benefit of a psychic's abilities, Duran said, dry now. Yes, sir. This time, Varden waited patiently in silence. Duran looked absently back toward the window for a moment, his pale eyes distant. When he returned his attention to his lieutenant, his voice became brisk. Is Mason ready for them? Yes, sir. He understands what I want him to do? Yes, sir. Good. Duran made a slight gesture of dismissal. See that he follows his instructions precisely. Varden nodded a reply and left the room. Duran returned to the window. This time his gaze roved, studying the lights of various buildings, as if searching for a particular one. Following the neatly laid out streets, scanning the dark patches of parks and woods. Softly, as if to someone he expected to hear his voice, he said, I feel you out there, nearby. You think you can save her, you think you can save them all. Sometimes you even think you can save me. After a moment, he laughed very quietly, a sound that held little amusement. Sarah came awake suddenly, heart pounding. She was sitting up in bed, her hands reaching out for something, someone. She tried to recall her dreams, but all she remembered was the uneasy sensation of something missing, something wrong. A glance at the bright display of the clock radio on her nightstand told her it was just after midnight, which meant she had been asleep only a couple of hours. The pressure inside her head was different, and she didn't have a clue what that meant. The almost closed connecting door to the parlor showed a sliver of light, so Tucker was obviously still up. Feeling too restless to attempt sleep again so soon after waking, Sarah slid out of the big bed. She turned on the lamp and blinked a moment in the light, then found and shrugged into the thick robe provided by the hotel. When she went into the parlor, it was to find Tucker seated at the small desk, frowning at his laptop. But he looked up alertly as soon as she came in. What is it? Sarah shook her head and sat down on the couch. Nothing, I just can't sleep. Have you found anything? He hesitated and then reluctantly said, There was a woman's body found in Richmond a couple of days after the fire. Sarah felt her throat tighten up, but said steadily, A body that could have been mistaken for me. The police description is of a white female, age 30, 5'4", about 105 pounds, dark hair, brown eyes. The M.E. thinks she died sometime last Wednesday, the day of the fire. How was she killed? Again, Tucker hesitated. Sarah, how was she killed? Smoke inhalation, though there were no burns in her body, and she was found in a shallow grave in an empty lot. Some kids playing baseball found her there. Sarah swallowed to fight the queasy sensation rising in her throat. Kids, great. What do the police think? Reading between the lines of the reports, they don't know what to think. The woman lived alone. Her neighbors claim nothing unusual happened around the time she must have died. The man she was dating has a solid alibi, and nobody thinks he did it anyway. He was, according to everyone who knew them, devoted to her. So far, they haven't found any enemies. She was not sexually assaulted and was apparently laid out in the grave with some care, identification by her side. No sign that she fought or even struggled. The ME thinks she may have been asleep when the smoke got her. He found slight traces of a sedative in her body. If Tucker thought Sarah found that last a comfort, he was wrong. What was her name? Sarah. Let it go. She drew a breath. What was her name? Jennifer Healy. Sarah repeated the name in a whisper, committing it to memory. She was reasonably sure the police would never solve the murder of Jennifer Healy. Reasonably sure that the media would accord the crime scant attention. Reasonably sure that in time the boyfriend would get on with his life and the friends would think of her less and less. Reasonably sure that the people responsible for her death had already wiped her from their minds. But Sarah was certain that she, at least, would never forget. There's no way to be sure they intended to use her body. Tucker pointed out reasonably. She could have been the victim of a garden variety killer who is motivated by reasons we'll never know and wouldn't understand if we did. Right. And even if she did die just to give them a body they could use, it isn't your fault. There's nothing you could have done to prevent her death. Sarah leaned her head back and closed her eyes, awareness far more emotional than physical washing over her. You know, when all this started, I thought it just affected me, that I was the target, the only one in danger. It never occurred to me that anyone else might get hurt because of me. But then there was Margot in the wrong place at the wrong time. And now this poor woman, this woman I never even met, this woman who will never marry, never have children, never grow old, because of me. Who else is going to be killed or threatened with death because I got hit on the head and turned into a valuable freak? Tucker hesitated for only a moment before leaving the desk and coming to sit beside her on the couch. She was alone again, locked inside herself where it was cold and bleak, and he couldn't just leave her there. Sarah, you are not a freak. He reached over to cover the restless fingers knotted together in her lap. They were cold and stiff. And this is not your fault. No. Her eyes remained closed, her face still. I keep thinking there must have been a point somewhere along the way where I could have, should have, made a different choice, a different decision. And that would have changed everything. But then I remember that all this is fate, destiny. She opened her eyes then, raised her head, and turned it to look at him. Her eyes were darker than eyes should ever be, the pupils wide and black and empty, and her voice was curiously toneless, dull. This is where I have to be, where I'm supposed to be. You're who I'm supposed to be with, and everything that has happened was meant to happen just as it did. It was all planned out for me a long time ago, so why don't I just accept that? I don't believe our lives are mapped out for us, he reminded her quietly. She looked at him for a moment longer, those great dark eyes unblinking. Then maybe I could have saved Jennifer Healy. No, that was the choice they made, not you. There's nothing you could have done, Sarah. All right. She didn't sound convinced so much as wary and turned her head away to look vaguely across the room. Have you found any new or useful information about them or what they've been doing? Anything helpful? For an instant, Tucker considered not letting her change the subject, but in the end, he accepted the new one. He could only push so much, insist so often, before she would withdraw into some place where he'd never be able to reach her. He dared not risk that. Deliberately, he took his hand off hers and leaned back, away from her just a bit. More of the same, supposedly dead and missing psychics in 2 more major cities. Then there's no safe place? Doesn't look like it. Not in the major cities, not in this country anyway. Surprised and more unnerved than she had been, she said, "You don't think this is worldwide?" Tucker shrugged. "There's no way to know, really. I can tap into a few data sources worldwide, but nothing specific enough to answer that question, at least not without drawing attention to myself. It's difficult enough to stay under the radar here. The government is always looking for computer hackers as threats and as assets. They monitor us a lot more closely than the average citizen realizes." Great, something else to be paranoid about. We live in dangerous times, and there were some pretty damn intrusive laws passed after the towers fell. It was clear he took exception to at least some of those laws, and Sarah hoped they'd have a chance to sit and discuss it all. She really did hope they'd have that time. But for now, there were more imperative things to discuss. "So you don't know if this thing could be worldwide? If it is," he said steadily, "we'll find out eventually. For now, we've got all we can handle. More than we can handle. We're doing okay. We're still alive and on the loose." He tried to sound positive and wasn't at all sure he pulled it off. "Are we? Or are we just threats in a maze?" He frowned slightly. "Is that what you feel?" "Stop asking me what I feel." "I can't do that, Sarah. Your feelings can guide us." Without giving her a chance to argue with him, he repeated, "Do you feel we're rats in a maze? Honestly feel that? Or is it frustration talking?" Sarah got up from the couch and went over to the window, where the partially drawn drapes offered only a narrow piece of the night. She stood there looking out, and for a long time she didn't say anything. Tucker waited patiently. Finally, tensely, she said, "What you don't seem to understand is that sometimes, usually, I can't tell the difference. A vision is a very clear-cut thing, no matter how you choose to interpret it. But impulses, hunches, feelings, these damn voices in my head, how do I know what they mean? How can I tell? Is it just my fears talking to me? My imagination working overtime? Or is there a truer voice I should be listening to?" "You won't know unless you listen." "It's easy for you to say." "Yes, it is," he agreed. "I'm not the one who has to sort through all the background noise you'll hear. But I'll help all I can, Sarah. Just tell me how to do that." "I don't know how. I don't even know that." After a moment, Tucker got up and joined her at the window. "Maybe we're both demanding too much too fast from you. Sarah would never do anything to hurt you. I hope you know that." "I know you have only the best of intentions," she murmured. There was no particular emotion in her voice, but Tucker nonetheless felt there was something ironic in her remark, and it made him defensive. "No matter what they say about the road to hell, we're not moving in that direction, Sarah, I promise you." "You should stop making promises." She turned her head suddenly to look at him out of those two dark eyes. Your track record with them isn't very good. He stiffened. No? No. Lydia would know that, wouldn't she? He felt a chill that went clear down to his bones, and gazing into her eyes, he had the abrupt and incredibly unsettling sense of something alien, something unnatural. She knew it all.